We are live. Another fishing show with Major League Fishing pro Brandon Palaniuk. He's also a bass fishing phenom. He's coming off a win at Sam Rayburn Reservoir.
Yep.
What a performance that was. We are just getting off the water for Major League Fishing. We can't tell you how the day was or anything, but Brandon is always great to be in the boat with. And Brandon, let's first start talking about that Sam Rayburn tournament. That was quite a performance. I saw some video that you posted to social media. Just kind of go through what led to you doing so well, the pre-fish and all that fun stuff.
Well, I had went and I spent a little bit of time. We had a tournament on Toledo Bend about a month prior to that. And right after that event, and prior to that event, I had went over to Sam Rayburn, and me and my girlfriend just drove around. Had the dog in the boat, kind of relaxed and fished, caught some big ones, and marked a bunch of deep stuff, and really just spent time getting to know the lake because I had never been to Sam Rayburn before. And when I got there for the tournament, I had actually kind of formulated a game plan of where I knew that there would be a bunch of fish caught shallow because there was still so much grass. And when I say grass, like grass all the way from one end of the lake to the other, super healthy hydrilla, and it was growing all the way to 10 or 11 foot, even 13, 14 in some places. So I knew that there was still going to be a bunch of big ones around there. But something inside of me told me that place was going to get one deep. It was just, there had already been a big wave of fish that spawned all the way in February, and all those fish had to have been offshore, I felt like. So I started checking a lot of the normal kind of offshore places, ends of big long points, creek channel drops, humps, and really wasn't finding anything. I found a couple like massive schools, but there'd be like 1.5 to 2 pounders. And I mean, there'd be 200 to 300 fish in them, but they're all the same size. They're all little. And it wasn't until really the second day of practice, I was marking a few fish and idling around, and I wasn't getting bit. And I tied on a Neko rig with a Zoom Magnum trick worm, and I idle, kind of see a couple fish that I think are bass. I'm telling myself these are bass. I've seen enough of them. They look just like bass. And 5 minutes later, I catch a 9-pounder. So that immediately told me and gave me confidence that, one, what I'm looking at are bass. That's confirmed. And two, now I have a way to catch them. And they're offshore. And every day I saw less and less guys doing it, and more guys fishing shallow, because there were so many fish to get caught shallow, and it was really tough to get bit deep. And it was kind of one of those tournaments where that week everything worked out perfect. I had found just enough areas offshore that the fish were coming to me. I found places that I marked in practice and didn't catch any there for 2 days in practice. Didn't catch a single fish on it the first day of the tournament. And the second day of the tournament, I idled over it, and there was an entire school around this brush pile. And the very first cast in it, I caught a 5'11". And that's where I proceeded to catch the majority of my weight on day 2 and day 3. And then on day 4, the first cast in there, I caught a 4.5 pounder, and then never caught another bass out of it. They were moving a lot, but I found most of those fish around standing timber and brush piles that were kind of in between the shallow places and those main offshore deals. And caught the majority of them on a Neko rig with a Zoom Magnum trick worm and a big 10-inch plum Zumo monster, and then a Stormarashi topwalker. That was kind of my 3-prong approach to the whole entire week, and I weighed big ones in on all those every single day.
If someone doesn't know what a Neko rig, can you explain that? Just kind of.
So a Neko rig, there's actually specific hooks and weights and everything for it to get the most out of the technique. And so I throw a VMC weedless Neko hook that actually comes out this July at ICAST, and it's pretty much a straight shank hook, but it's got a little bit different bend to it, and it's weedless. That's what I needed there. And then a VMC Half Moon wacky weight, and what it is it's pretty much a half sphere that has kind of a pronged shaft that you push inside of the worm, and you put it in the head of the worm, and about where the egg sac is, you put a little rubber band or wacky O-ring and slide that hook underneath there. And what it does is that worm falls straight down. You've got the weight down here. That worm falls straight down, and then as you move it, it kind of twitches on the bottom, and it gives those fish a different look, something they haven't seen. It looks like a little worm or a little bait fish feeding on the bottom. And when those fish were kind of scattered around the brush piles or around the standing timber and not really in a feeding mode, that was the best way to catch them.
So today is the first day of summer. You know, there's a lot of patterns that work in summer, but if you could give just like one tip, or or one lure is your favorite lure, like what is your kind of go-to pattern or lure? I know that might be a difficult question, but like, you know, for summer, like,
you know, one thing you got to just keep in mind is that those fish are going to be looking for cooler water. If you keep that in mind, that allows you to do a lot of different things. You know, you can't say, oh, you have to just go fish deep, or oh, you have to just go fish shallow, because that's not the case. Every body of water is different. But if you keep in mind, oh, they just need cooler water, well, then that allows you to adapt and look at a body of water and say, oh, these fish can get cooler water by going deep. They can get cooler water by going way up a river where they've got good, cool current coming in, or they can get in really heavy vegetation and shaded cover. And those are all things that you can do during the summer, because it's all cooler water temps. The fish are going to migrate to those. You know, not every fish lives the same in a body of water, and not every body of water is built the same. So for me, typically, you know, if I'm smallmouth fishing, I'm probably going to have a drop shot, either a Zoom Z drop or a Zoom trick worm, and I'm going to be fishing, you know, kind of offshore, looking for transitions, sand to rock transitions, grass edges, something like that those fish can cruise, because they're mostly sight feeders. They like to move and roam around and feed. If I'm largemouth fishing, I'll still throw a drop shot, Zoom trick worm, something like that. But generally, I'm going to try to fish it around some type of cover. They don't typically roam as much, and I'm trying to find, you know, deeper brush piles or some type of vegetation, something like that I can fish those around.
Western PA anglers just said those are that's great information for bass as far as what to do in the summer. He's a muskie fisherman. So he employs very similar tactics, is what he said.
And he probably likes throwing big baits.
Yes, and yes, Brandon loves to throw big baits.
Yeah.
So here's, I think, something that a lot of people kind of want to know about. What's it like to be a professional bass fisherman? Everybody knows the glamorous side of being a professional bass fisherman, but what are some of the less glamorous things about being a professional bass fisherman?
It's just always glamorous. I mean, you got people following you around with cameras. You got the best, you know, drivers in the world just driving you around. You just hang
boat
out.
officials. You have the best boat officials in the world.
Best boat officials. I mean, you just hang out all the time, make millions. It's easy.
Yeah, nothing to it.
There's no truth to that at all, other than the boat official part. And every once in a while, there's some guy with a camera. But I would say the toughest part is probably the travel. Being away from your family, your friends at home. I'm lucky enough that my girlfriend's able to travel with me full time, but I don't get to see my parents or like my core friends from home. I haven't been home since January this year. It's the third week in June, so I'm looking forward to getting back and, you know, hanging out with some of those people. And I would say that's the toughest part. You know, you miss birthdays and Mother's Day, Father's Day, all that stuff. So that's probably the toughest part. The other part is that you really have to be able to catch fish, but you also have to be able to run a business, and you have to be able to run social media and all this content in there. So you kind of have 3 or 4, maybe 5 full-time jobs, and if you really want to do well at it and work at it, there's no off days. You're kind of working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, just kind of whenever you can make stuff work and fit it in. So it's not always glamorous, but what I tell people is if they want to fish for a living, the only way you can do it is if you absolutely cannot live without it. You can't do it for the money. You can't do it for the fame or the glory. You literally have to do it just because you cannot live without it. Like, something inside of you, if you don't do it, you're miserable. And that's the way I am. And I knew from a really young age that I was either going to make it and fish for a living, or I was just going to go broke and be single my entire life and maybe die trying. Like, that was the two options I had.
Well, Brandon, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us here on Another Fishing Show's YouTube channel. And Brandon's got a YouTube channel as well. Brandon, why don't you plug that?
Yeah, we do. Doing some really cool content this year. Got a camera guy following me around all the time. Not this camera guy, another camera guy. And we're running a whole series for all the tournaments, so you can see all the behind-the-scenes stuff. My YouTube page is just BMP Fishing, and you go check that out. A bunch of cool content. Leave us feedback, because we really want the feedback so that we can kind of cater the content to the users that are watching.
Got a great Instagram account as well, so check him out. Brandon, appreciate it, dude. Yeah. And we are going to end this YouTube Live. Remember to subscribe to Another Fishing Show and Brandon's channel. Thanks.